She wrote just 7 words. But after reading them, the teacher couldn't breathe. They were scribbled in the corner of page 42, almost like a whisper on paper. "Please don't make me go home tonight." It was the kind of sentence that crawled under your skin and stayed there, cold and unmoving. But to understand why those words mattered, we need to go back. Back to the first day of school, September, leaves half yellow, air damp with summer's memory. The kind of day kids grown through, dragging backpacks and sleepy eyes. Room 3B was loud. Chairs scraped linoleum, pencils clattered, a new school year blooming with noise. Miss Lorna Ellis stood at the front, 34 years old. Hair always in a bun that started tight and unraveled by lunch. The kind of teacher who remembered birthdays, cried at talent shows and never ever yelled. And then there was her, Cora, 8 years old, shoes too big, sweater too small, face so quiet it barely existed. She arrived late, clutching a plastic lunchbox with a cartoon bear on it. One pigtail, half done, the other missing. She didn't look anyone in the eyes. When Miss Ellis knelt to say hello, Cora just blinked, nodded, and walked to the farthest desk in the back. She didn't talk much, never raised her hand, ate lunch alone. But she was polite, always said thank you, always finished her homework. There was something about her silence that wasn't shy. It was careful, like someone who had learned the world could bite without warning. For weeks, Miss Ellis watched her. Once during recess, she saw Cora lift her sleeve to scratch her arm, and in that flash of skin, the teacher noticed something odd. Bruise. Deep, yellow, faded at the edges. It could have been anything, could have. But then came the mornings. Cora started arriving earlier, way earlier. Sometimes the custodian hadn't even finished unlocking the doors when she'd be sitting on the steps, clutching that same plastic lunchbox like it was armor. "Couldn't sleep," she'd say. Or, "I woke up early." One day, it was pouring. Miss Ellis pulled up to the school and saw Cora soaked, hair stuck to her face, sitting on the wet concrete. "Sweetheart," she said, "you can't wait out here like this." Cora just shrugged. Didn't want to wake anyone. The teacher brought her inside, wrapped her in a towel, gave her cocoa from the teacher's lounge. She smiled, but Cora didn't smile back. Not really, not all the way. Then came the diary. It started as a class project, something to help the kids practice writing. Each student was given a notebook. "Write whatever you want," Miss Ellis told them. No grades, no judgment, just thoughts. Most kids doodled, wrote about cartoons, pets, siblings. Cora wrote every day, tiny handwriting, neat, almost obsessively so. No drawings, no glitter, pens, just ink and silence. She always handed it in early, quietly, like she was afraid of being seen. Miss Ellis started reading them during lunch, just a page or two from each child. But Cora's diary, it was hard to stop once you started. It wasn't what she wrote. It was what she didn't. Everything was written like a code. Little sentences that meant more than they said. Mom was in the bathtub all day. The water turned cold, but I didn't say anything. Or dinner was crackers. I gave mine to the dog. One page just said, "I wish I could be invisible and stay that way." The teacher's stomach twisted. She started making notes, observations, patterns, documenting the bruises, the early arrivals, the layers of clothes Cora wore even when it was hot. One day, Cora came in limping, said she'd tripped over her dog. But there was a look in her eyes, like something had been yanked out of her and not put back. Still, no proof until page 42. It was a Friday. Raining again. Miss Ellis sat at her desk, alone, flipping through the pages of Cora's diary, a mug of tea going cold beside her. She reached page 42. It was nearly blank, except for one sentence at the bottom, 7 words scrawled so faintly. She had to squint. "Please don't make me go home tonight." She froze. The room suddenly felt too still, too quiet. She read it again, and then the rest of the page caught her eye. There was more, written in even smaller print, almost pressed into the paper. If I say it out loud, he'll know. But I think he already knows I wrote it. My window was open last night. I heard the gravel crunch. I think he was outside. I think he was watching me sleep. Miss Ellis stood up so fast her chair fell backwards. She couldn't breathe. Her first thought was to call someone, anyone. But then the door opened. Cora stood there, dripping from the rain, holding her lunchbox. She looked up at her teacher, eyes tired, lips trembling. "I forgot my sweater," she said. Miss Ellis moved slowly, like if she made a sudden motion, the girl would vanish. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "do you want to stay here for a little while?" Cora didn't answer. She just walked over, handed Miss Ellis the lunchbox, and said, "Can you keep this safe?" Inside, it rattled. The teacher opened it. Inside, there were 3 things: a cracked Polaroid of a little boy standing next to Cora, smiling, hugging her. A note, folded in quarters. On it, "If anything happens to me, look in the garden, under the stones." And a key, just one, silver, old, no label. Cora was staring at her. "Is that okay?" she whispered. "If I leave it with you?" Miss Ellis nodded, couldn't speak. That night she didn't sleep. The diary, the photo, the note, the key, and the words that echoed louder than anything. "He was watching me sleep." She called child services the next morning, told them everything, the bruises, the early mornings, the diary, page 42. They promised to send someone. Hours passed. The minutes dripped like syrup. Then the knock, but it wasn't the agency. It was a man, tall, thin. Wearing a red jacket with grease on the sleeves, he smiled. But it didn't reach his eyes. "Looking for my daughter," he said. "Cora." Left her lunchbox behind. Miss Ellis's blood ran cold. She tried to stall, said Cora had gone to the nurse, that she wasn't feeling well. The man didn't blink. "Always getting sick, that one," he muttered. "Probably faking, like her mother used to." His hand reached out, grabbed the lunchbox off the desk. "I'll be taking this." Mrs. Ellis stepped in front of it. "I'm sorry," she said, voice steady, "but you'll need to wait." He stared at her, long, silent. Then he laughed, low, like a cough. "Lady," he said, "you don't want to get involved." And then he left. Miss Ellis locked the door behind him. Later that night, someone broke into her car. Nothing was stolen except for Cora's diary. The next day, Cora didn't come to school, and she didn't come the day after that either, or the day after that. Miss Ellis called every number she had, filed reports, pushed papers, begged for someone to care, but no one knew where the girl had gone. Vanished, just like that, except for one thing. That night, Miss Ellis went home, opened the plastic lunchbox again, and unfolded the note, and something fell out. A second key, smaller, rusted. Attached was a tag, one word, scrawled in shaky pen, basement. And tomorrow she would go there, because she had to, because something was waiting, something that had never been meant to be found. The basement door groaned like something alive when Miss Ellis pushed it open. Dust swirled in the shaft of her flashlight, catching in her throat, coating the silence. She hadn't been down here in years, not since she bought the house. It was just storage, forgotten furniture, a place where time gathered in corners and cobwebs ruled the air. But tonight, the basement wasn't hers. Not really. Not since she found that second key. She stood at the top step, hand trembling over the railing, staring into the dark. Cora's words echoed in her head. "If anything happens to me, look in the garden, under the stones." The garden hadn't revealed much, just soil, damp and stubborn. The stones had been heavy, but she found the tin box wedged underneath. Inside, the key, the tag, and something else, a lock of hair tied with red string. Miss Ellis hadn't cried, not then. She'd just gone cold. Now the key was warm in her palm from how tight she was holding it. She stepped down into the dark. Each creak of the wood felt like a scream, like the house itself didn't want her there. At the bottom, her light. Found boxes, tarps, old bikes, rusted paint cans, nothing unusual. But in the corner, something new. A door, small, fitted into the wall like a secret. She hadn't seen it before, not once, Not ever. The lock was old. The key slid in like it had been waiting. Click. The door opened, and behind it, another room, tiny, cramped barely. 6 feet across, the floor was dirt, the walls were concrete, and in the center, a blanket. Folded, neatly, beside it a book. Miss Ellis stepped inside. Her shoes sank slightly into the earth. It smelled like rot, like forgotten things. She picked up the book. Not a diary, not this time. A ledger. Names. Dates. Some crossed out, some not. Cora's name wasn't there, but there was one name that was. Miss Ellis's hands shook as she read it. Her own, written in red ink, dated 2 weeks ago, and next to it, in parentheses, knows too much. She dropped the book, ran, back up the stairs, slamming the door, locking it. Her breath wouldn't come.
Right.
It hitched in gasps, her chest refusing to cooperate. Someone had written her name in a place she didn't know existed, with intent, with planning. This wasn't just abuse, this was something deeper, something colder. She called the police, tried to, but the line crackled, went dead, no signal. She paced, checked her phone, nothing. The silence felt loud, like something breathing under the floorboards. Then, a knock. She froze, slowly walked to the door, peered through the peephole. No one. She opened it. Nothing, just the wind. And on the welcome mat, a folded piece of paper. Miss Ellis picked it up, unfolded. In one sentence, in blocky handwriting, "You shouldn't have looked." She closed the door, bolted it, pulled every curtain shut. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat in her kitchen, the keys in front of her, staring at the clock as it ticked toward morning, like it wanted to warn her but couldn't. By dawn, she made a decision. She went back to the school. It was Sunday. The halls were dark. But she had keys. Teachers always do. She went to the supply room first, then to the principal's office. Inside, she opened a drawer she'd never touched before. Student records. She searched for Cora. Nothing under her name, nothing under her birthday. She pulled every file. Still nothing. No enrollment form, no guardian contact, no emergency sheet. No one by the name of Cora had ever been registered. It didn't make sense. Miss Ellis had taken photos of her, report cards, attendance logs. There were records. She'd filled them out herself. She ran back to her classroom, pulled open her drawer. The folder with student reports was gone. The attendance sheet was blank. Even the class photo, Cora, was missing, like she'd never stood there to begin with. Miss Ellis's hands trembled as she flipped through page after page. Gone, erased. She turned on her laptop, opened the school system, typed Cora's name. No results found. Typed it again. Error. She leaned back in her chair. What was happening? What had she seen? Or, worse, what had she imagined? Her thoughts were interrupted by a noise, a soft one, like paper. Sliding, she turned at her desk. Cora's diary was there, the one that had been stolen, its cover closed, perfectly centered, and on top of it, a flower, a dead one, black and brittle. Miss Ellis didn't touch it. She didn't move. Her eyes filled with tears. Then her classroom phone rang. She jumped, picked it up. Static. Then a voice, low, male. "You were warned." Click. She drove straight to the police station, told them everything, the bruises, the lunchbox, the garden, the diary. They nodded, took notes, asked questions, then they asked something that made her stomach cave in. "Have you ever been treated for hallucinations, Miss Ellis?" She stared at them. "What?" "Just protocol," the officer said. She went home, tore through every file, every drawer. She still had the lunchbox, still had the key, but the photo, gone. The note, gone. Even the red string that tied the hair, gone. All that remained was the second key. Basement, except now, the door was sealed, as if it had never opened. She pressed her ear against it. Nothing. No sound. But that night, she had a dream. Cora stood at the foot of her bed, eyes hollow, dress stained with mud. She didn't speak, just pointed at the wall. When Miss Ellis woke up, she checked, found nothing, but then she noticed something behind her bookshelf. A discolored panel, warped wood. She pulled it aside. Behind it, another ledger, dust-covered older. She opened it, and there, on the last page, page 42, handwritten in Cora's tiny, perfect script, only this time, it was a list of names, Miss Ellis's included, and at the very bottom, if you found this, it's already too late. She dropped the book, backed away. Every instinct in her screamed to run, but where? Who would believe her? And if they did, what could they even do? The next morning, she went to the garden again, dug deeper, found bones, tiny, fragile, wrapped in fabric, children's fabric, and beneath them, a second box. Locked, the key from the lunchbox fit perfectly. Inside, a flash drive. She plugged it in and saw a video. Grainy. Time-stamped 5 years ago. In it, a girl stands in a dark room, face bruised, holding a sign. My name was Cora. Then, static and silence. Miss Ellis pressed rewind. Play, the same. My name was Cora, as if she had already vanished by the time the world noticed her, by the time anyone cared. And now, someone knew Miss Ellis had watched it. The next day, her car tires were slashed, her cat went missing, her front door left ajar even though she always double-locked it, and in her mailbox, another envelope. Inside, one photo of her sleeping, taken through the window. No note, no explanation, just proof. She wasn't just involved anymore, she was part of it, whatever it was. She didn't go to school the next day. Instead, she drove. No destination, just distance. Every mile between her and the classroom felt like a thin veil of safety. But halfway through the highway, she saw a hitchhiker, small, young, wearing a red sweater 2 sizes too small, holding a sign, "Please don't, make me go home." She slammed the brakes, heart pounding, but when she looked again, no one, just an empty shoulder. Dust swirling in the sun. She kept driving and driving, until she couldn't anymore, until the fuel ran out, and even then, she sat in silence, because page 42 wasn't just a number, it was a door, and once you read it, once you understood, you couldn't close it again, not without someone closing it for you. The motel room smelled like bleach and regret. Miss Ellis locked the door 3 times. She pulled the curtains closed and shoved a chair under the knob. She hadn't spoken to anyone in 2 days. No calls, no emails, no school. She kept the flash drive on a chain around her neck like a warning or a countdown. Her phone buzzed once, no number, just a message. You can't run from ghosts, Miss Ellis. She dropped the phone in the sink and turned on the water. Let it soak, let it drown. She stared at herself in the mirror, sunken eyes, pale lips, hair a mess. She didn't recognize the woman looking back. The knock came at 2:16 a.m., soft, deliberate. She didn't move. Again, knock, 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 slow, rhythmic. She grabbed the fire iron from beside the bed and approached, pressed her eye to the peephole. Nothing, but she heard it, a whisper, right at the base of the door. I remember everything. She stumbled back. The voice, it was Cora. She knew it like her own breath. But it couldn't be. She was gone, buried, erased. She didn't sleep. When the sun rose, she drove back to the school. She didn't know why. She just had to. The lot was empty, but the front doors were unlocked. The hallways echoed with the hum of fluorescent lights. Her shoes made no sound. She walked straight to the 2nd floor. Room 208. Cora's homeroom before she transferred into Miss Ellis's class, or was placed there, or hidden there. The door opened before she touched it. Inside, dark, dust on every surface. A desk near the window had a name carved into it. Cora. Not written, carved over and over. Dozens of times, the wood splintered around. Hidden underneath each carving, a date. But they weren't school years. They were exact month, day, time. One every few weeks. The last one, just 2 days before the diary was found. Miss Ellis opened the desk. Inside, a single Polaroid. It showed Cora, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut with black thread. A hand behind her head, a man's hand. Wearing a silver ring, she turned the photo over. One word. He. That's all. Just that. She left the room, went straight to the principal's office. He wasn't there. But the computer was on, password screen blinking. She guessed once. Welcome 1. It worked. She opened the student directory, searched Cora. Still no results. Then she tried something else. Typed in her own name. There she was. But something was wrong. The profile listed her as a substitute teacher, not permanent. Start date. 4 weeks ago. That wasn't right. She'd been teaching there for 2 years. She scrolled. Employment history empty, references none. A blank file, as if she had just appeared one day, made up. She clicked on Documents. One file labeled Ellis Protocol, Tier 3, password protected. Her breath caught. She tried her birthday. Wrong. Tried Cora. Wrong then. She typed page 42. The file opened. Text, long, bureaucratic, clinical, like something written by machines. Pretending to be human, Tier 3 subject, potential leak, risk, memory anchors failing, exposure imminent. Prepare containment. Miss Ellis backed away from the desk. Was this about her? Who wrote this? What was a Tier 3? She printed it, grabbed it, folded it, stuffed it in her coat. Then she saw the camera above the door, blinking red. Recording. She ran down. The hall, out the doors, into the sun. She drove again. No destination, just motion. Like if she kept moving, the shadows wouldn't stick. But when she stopped at a gas station, something was waiting. A girl, sitting on the curb, red sweater. Too small. She looked up, and Miss Ellis's stomach dropped. It was her, Cora, not a ghost, not a memory. Real, alive. But her eyes weren't right. Too dark, too knowing. Miss Ellis approached slowly. Cora didn't smile, didn't blink, just whispered, "You're not supposed to see me." Miss Ellis crouched, touched her arm. It was cold, too cold. "Where have you been?" she asked. Cora looked past her. Everywhere. Miss Ellis pulled her close, but when she blinked, the girl was gone. Gone. Not walked away, not run. Vanished. Like smoke. The clerk inside asked if she was okay. She didn't answer, just paid for the gas and left. By nightfall, she was back home. She didn't remember deciding to return. Her hands moved, on their own. The house smelled like mold and earth, like something left too long underground. The lights wouldn't turn on. She lit a candle, moved through the hall like a trespasser. The basement door was open, the key in the lock. She stepped down. The air was thick, wet, still. The secret room was still there, but it was different now, larger. The walls, lined with photographs of children, dozens, maybe hundreds, each one labeled date, time. Code. Miss Ellis's photo was now there too, added to the wall. Below it, Tier 3. Containment failed. She turned, and someone was there, not a figure, not a face, just bare presence. She felt it more than saw it, a gravity, a silence that swallowed hers, and then a voice, low, deep, not human. You weren't supposed to care. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. The presence stepped closer. You remembered. That was your first mistake. She held up the flash drive like a shield. I know what you did, she whispered. No, the voice said. You only know. What we let you see. Then, darkness. The candle snuffed. The room spun, and the next thing she knew, she was in her bed. Sunlight bleeding through the curtains, the birds chirping. Normal, safe, but it wasn't. She ran to the mirror, her eyes bloodshot, her hands mud under the nails. She checked the flash drive. Gone. The folder from her coat. Gone. No signs of a break-in except the front door was open. She called the police again, told them everything. Again. This time, they sent someone, a young officer, polite, patient. She told him everything from the beginning. He listened, took notes, then asked a question. What did the man in the basement look like? She froze. I didn't say it was a man. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course you didn't. He left soon after. But she found a card on her table, his contact information, and on the back, a handwritten message. "You're not alone. Meet me where the garden ends." That night, she went to the edge of her backyard, beyond the stones, past the buried box. There, behind the trees, was a path she'd never noticed, worn into the earth. She followed it, deeper, darker, until she reached a clearing, and there, a bench, and on it, Cora, waiting, alive, real. She stood as Miss Ellis approached. This time, no red sweater, just a white dress, clean, unreal. Miss Ellis stepped forward. "You're real," Cora nodded. "You brought me back." "How?" Cora didn't answer, just turned, pointing at the woods behind her. Some things were never meant to be found. Miss Ellis wanted to cry, wanted to scream, but she just stood there, frozen in the wind. Cora stepped closer, put something in her hand, a photo of Miss Ellis. As a child, in the same white dress, and in the background, a shadow, tall, watching. "You were there too," Cora whispered. "You just forgot." The photo trembled in her hands, not because of the cold, but because she remembered. The moment it was taken, the smell of damp earth, the chirp of crickets, the thick heat of summer air. She was 6. It was a picnic. Her mother had packed lemonade, but her mother wasn't in the photo. No one was, except her. And the shadow, that long, distorted figure in the tree line. She used to tell people about him. The man with the silver ring. He came when the lights flickered. He whispered from air vents. He stood at the foot of her bed when she pretended to sleep. And every time she told a grown-up, they gave her pills or told her she was just sensitive. But she had seen him. He was real. And now he was back. Cora sat beside her on the bench, legs crossed like a doll. The forest around them didn't sound like a forest anymore. No birds, no wind, just a hum, faint, mechanical, like the world itself was pretending. Cora handed her another object, a key, tiny, brass, cold as bone. Miss Ellis stared at it. "What's this for?" But Cora only said, "Page 43," and vanished. No flicker, no blink, one moment there, then not. The bench was empty, the woods fell silent. Miss Ellis stood, turned back the way she came, but the path was gone. No trail, no footprints, no clearing, just trees, endless, unmoving. It took her hours to find her way out, and when she reached her backyard, the sun was in the same place, as if time had folded in on itself. Inside her house, the lights flickered. She checked her clock. It blinked. 42 a.m. and wouldn't change. Stuck, like something was waiting. She pulled out Cora's diary again, turned to page 42, the last page she had dared read. It was still there, the jagged writing. Panic. The bloodstain in the corner, but something was different. There was now a folded piece of paper wedged between 42 and the blank final page. She hadn't seen it before. She opened it. It wasn't Cora's handwriting. It was older, sharper, precise. "Miss Ellis, you were never hired. You were placed. You were tested, and you failed." She dropped it. Her hand shook. The phone rang. No number, just static. Then a voice, not a whisper, not Cora, something older, more hollow. "You've seen what wasn't meant for eyes." The call. Cut. She opened her laptop, searched her own name. No results, no records, no trace. She checked her degrees, her photos, her old IDs, all gone, vanished, like she'd been peeled out of the world. She ran to the mirror again, touched her face. Still her, still. Human, right? She didn't sleep, just stared out the window. Until morning came, but the sun didn't look right either. It was pale, too round, too quiet, and the birds outside sat still in the trees, unmoving, as if waiting. She went to school. Even though she knew she shouldn't, even though every part of her screamed to run. The parking lot was full, but the building, wrong. Bricks darker, windows blackened, no bell, no sound. She walked the hall, each step echoing like a footstep in a tunnel. Room 209. Her classroom stood open. Inside, 20 children sat silently, not blinking, not breathing. Cora was in the front row, so was she, Miss Ellis. A second version, hair neat, smile warm, hands folded on the desk, teaching her. The second Miss Ellis looked up and smiled. The students turned in unison, their faces blank, no mouths, just smooth skin. She backed away, but the door shut behind her, locked. She pounded, screamed, but the sound didn't travel. Then a whisper, right behind her ear, page 43. She turned, there was no one. She pulled out the diary, turned to the final page. For the first time, it wasn't blank. One sentence. Scrawled in red, this is the page that watches you back. And beneath it, a mirror glued to the page, tiny, cracked. She looked into it, and it blinked. She dropped the book. The room dissolved, the walls fell away like ash, and she stood in water, knee-deep, pitch black, endless in every direction. Above her, a single light bulb, swung from a cord. Buzzing, she moved forward. The water didn't ripple, didn't splash, like it wasn't water at all. She saw something floating, a chair, a desk, a photo frame, all from her classroom. Then a body, floating face down. Small, Cora. She ran, pulled her from the water, but the body crumbled in her arms. Paper, she picked up a piece. It was page 43, repeated over and over, dozens of copies, all soaked, all bleeding ink. Then, a shadow behind her, she turned and saw him, the man, the one from her childhood, the silver ring glinting on his hand. His face was wrong, blurred, shifting, like it refused to be remembered. He raised a hand, not to strike, to offer. Another key, longer, rusty. She took it, had to, and the moment her fingers touched it, she was back in her house, in her bed, everything in place. But her hand was bleeding where the key had been, and on her palm, a mark, not a cut, a symbol, a spiral. She checked the diary again. The mirror was gone, but now the cover was blank, the name, Cora, erased. In its place, her own name, Ms. A. Ellis, as if it had always been hers, as if Cora had never existed. But she remembered her. She had to, didn't she? The phone rang again. Same static, same silence. Then, you're almost ready. She didn't ask ready for what. She was too tired, too afraid, but in her heart she knew whatever had started when she opened that diary, it hadn't been about saving a child. It had been about opening a door, and now that door was halfway open. She didn't know how to close it, or if she even could. And outside, the birds had stopped singing again. She stopped sleeping, not because she didn't want to, but because something now waited behind her eyelids, not dreams, not even nightmares, just him, the man, the not man, with the silver ring and the unfinished face. He didn't speak anymore. He just watched, sometimes from the corner of her room, sometimes from inside her reflection. Once, from behind her shower curtain, she stopped turning on the lights because she knew he was easier to see in the dark. The diary stayed locked in her desk drawer, but she could still feel it, beating like a second heart. Sometimes she heard pages turning, by themselves. Sometimes it whispered her name. Other times, it hummed the tune from the music box Cora used to carry, the one no one remembered, no students, no staff. When she asked Principal Harmon about Cora, he looked confused. Who's Cora? The girl in room 209, the one with the diary, he frowned. There hasn't been a room 209 here in years. He walked her to the hallway himself. The plaque on the wall said, 208, 210, no 209, just a blank stretch of wall, seamless painted. Over, gone. But Miss Ellis remembered it. She had stood in it, taught in it, hadn't she? She went home that night and opened the drawer. The diary was gone. In its place, a photograph, old curled at the edges. She recognized the girl. It was Cora, younger, maybe 5, standing outside a house she didn't recognize. Behind her, a figure, not the man, a woman, blurry but familiar. She looked again, closer. The woman's necklace, same one she wore now. She dropped the photo. It couldn't be. That wasn't her. It wasn't. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Page 44, but there was no page 44. She opened her laptop, typed page 44 into the browser, only one result. A download link, no name, no description. She clicked it. The screen flickered, turned black, then white text appeared. We don't write the pages, we become them. Her screen shut off. She ran, out of the house, down the street. Didn't stop until she reached the school. Something told her it would be open. It was. The lights were off, but the hallway to the old wing was glowing faintly from behind the wall that used to be room 209. She touched the bricks, warm, buzzing, like a pulse. She reached into her pocket without knowing why, and there it was. The key, the one he had given her. Long, rusted, cold. She pressed it against the wall. There was no lock, but the wall responded. Anyway, it sank inward, bricks folding like paper, peeling back, revealing a door, not wood, not metal, just black. She stepped through, and immediately the world changed. No more hallway, no more school, just a staircase, stone, descending, forever. She walked, each step echoing like thunder. Her feet never tired, her body never aged. Down and down and down until a chamber lit by candles that didn't burn, books on shelves that bled ink, and in the center, a desk, wooden, rotting, with one object on it, the diary, open, but not handwritten, typed, perfectly aligned, page after page, and across the top. Case file, A. Illis. She read everything, her childhood, her time in college, her imaginary friends, except she hadn't had imaginary friends, had she? It said she did. It said one of them was named Cora, another one named Father with No Face. It detailed her diagnosis, delusions, dissociation, fragmented identity, but none of that was real. She wasn't sick. She wasn't. She slammed the diary shut, but it didn't close. It turned to a new page on its own. Page 44, blank. Waiting. A single. Line at the top, write your final entry. She backed away, shook her head. No. But her hand moved anyway. She wasn't holding a pen, but ink bled from her fingertips, forming words. She couldn't stop. I was never a teacher. I was never cured. I was placed in the school to test containment. The diary is not a book. It is a door. I opened it. Her body trembled. She screamed, tried to pull her hands back, but they weren't hers anymore. Her mouth moved. Words came out, not hers. The same voice from the phone, the static one. Host integrity, compromised phase. Two initiated. Her vision blurred. Not like sleep, like replacement, like she was being overwritten. Her skin itched. Her hair fell in clumps. Her reflection in the candle wax showed not a woman, but a child. Cora, smiling, mouth wide, eyes hollow. Cora stepped from the wax and became solid. I missed you, Miss Ellis. The teacher couldn't speak, couldn't scream, couldn't run. Cora walked over and touched her face. You did good. You made it all the way. Behind her, the man appeared again. No face, no eyes. But this time, he bowed. To her, Miss Ellis looked. At her hands, they were small again, childlike, Cora-sized. She looked into the reflection once more. She was Cora. No, not just Cora. All of them, the girls who went missing, the voices from the diary, the teacher, the student, the daughter. She was the page. Her whole life had been writing toward this, and now she had nothing left to write. The diary closed by itself. The room folded, the candles died. Darkness, silence. Then a knock from outside, room 209. Thoi, wall had returned painted perfect. Except now there was a door again, and a sign, Miss Cora Ellis, substitute teacher. Inside, students sat, quiet, staring. The teacher smiled, same necklace, same warm hands, same voice, but different eyes, eyes that had seen the other side. A girl in the front row raised her hand. Can I go home, please? Miss Ellis smiled, leaned down, whispered, gently, Why would you ever want to go home? And the lights flickered.